100 years ago, a wilderness. Today, a city of 600,000 people. And they're all here to celebrate Adelaide's centenary at a pageant of progress. The army parades, depicting the changes of uniform from the soldiers who fought with Wellington to those who fought with whiskers. They're all brave men, whether in red coats or khaki, and South Australia honors them. Sailors have changed too, or at least their uniforms have. But it was men like these who brought the ships of discovery to South Australia. And later, men like these brought Governor Hindmarsh in HMS Buffalo to found the colony. There's the Buffalo in replica. A sharp contrast is the type of warship that guards our coast today, HMAS Australia. The Governor, Sir Winston Duggan, is proud of the state that has made such splendid progress in a century. The globe spins, and from this meeting of the Colonization Committee in London in 1835 arose South Australia, now one of the great primary producing countries, sending to the four corners of the earth her wool, her wine, and her wheat. And from the wheat, the bread. Better have a big loaf today, lady. Baker's holiday tomorrow, and then they'll have a big loaf. They say history moves in cycles, and this proves it. Riding some of these things was as easy as falling off a bike. But this lady makes sure she won't fall off. They have a great railway system in South Australia. The train takes the station along with it, so you can't miss your train. But here is progress. South Australia is the first state to introduce the streamlined train, streamlining along the right lines for a prosperous future.
Do your Christmas shopping early and give a bloke a chance, will you? Implores the old gentleman. And Adelaide turns out to welcome him with open stockings and the biggest crowd on record. Somebody spread the rumour they were giving away samples. No, Willie, you can't have the pretty boat. There's no room for you and it and the sailors in the same bath. Wouldn't Father like to play with these soldiers? Then Mother might get on the high horse. Just like any other sergeant major, full of hot air and bounce. Hail, pardon. Hail, Santa Claus. Ah, a northern visitor. He's come down from Darwin. And they told me Father Christmas came down the chimney. So I locked the door and waited up all night. Maybe, but definitely I call every Christmas Eve.
goes gay with a monster Christmas pageant, a procession of fairy tale characters that keeps thousands of kiddies enthralled as they line the streets. There's not an ugly duckling among this lot, and think of the big eggs they'd lay. Wonderful for throwing at election meetings. The drum majorettes are there, too. Must be a character from a very tall fish story. And there's Pluto. He smells trouble. Humpty Dumpty just about to have his fall. Ali Baba and his 40 thieves. Must be an exhibit from the taxation department. Straight from the storybook tale of the Wizard of Oz, the Tin Man. Christmas time is kiddies' time, and here comes Santa himself, climax to a great procession of the best-loved characters in Toyland.
From the heart of the city he planned, they move his monument. The great statue of Colonel Light, designer of Adelaide, is lifted bodily from its King William Street pedestal and lowered into a lorry for removal to a new site on Montefiore Hill. Colonel Light, famous colonial surveyor, laid out the South Australian capital years ago and did the job so well that Adelaide remains in many respects Australia's best planned metropolis. Light's greatest idea was to surround the city with a wide girdle of parklands, which divides the commercial centre from the residential and industrial areas. Now the designer's statue on its new site surveys the splendid panorama of the city that grew as he planned.
Home, James, and don't spare the horses. It's 15 miles we're travelling from Adelaide to Glenelg in this veteran cars rally. Ah, the tomboy. She'll be wanting the vote next. Tyre trouble? Try our repair system. It cuts tyre repair bills in half. Trouble with these girls is they refuse to walk home. Yes, it's a flashback to the fast life of the dear old days, when our fathers wore moustaches like handlebars and developed muscles like heavyweight wrestlers, pushing the old bus home. Here's Mrs. Dolling in her nippy three-wheel Phoenix. A Phoenix just risen from the ashes by the look of it. All right, laugh at the old-timers, but remember, nobody talk petrol rationing to them. Water, water everywhere, and not a drop to drink. We crawl in the best natatorial style into Adelaide city baths. By now, we're so darn clean, we'll probably lose our popularity in high social circles. Built on the site of the former city bath, this Olympic pool cost £32,000, and today 1,400 people are cooling off in it. The boys and girls of the village recklessly fling themselves off the springboard, and vice versa. More air up there, please. The old maestro committed his body to the deep again. Tut, tut, wherever a man goes these days, some bloke's trying to give him the oil about a good thing in a flying. Go away, will you? Go away. No, not you, sweetheart. Must be our blood pressure. Anyway, they still make us take water with it. Muhammad Alam, called by thousands of grateful patients the Wonder Man from Kandahar, is a father at 83. His wife celebrated her 20th birthday a few days after the birth of their daughter. An Afghan healer, he receives over 100 letters each day from people anxious to be cured of their ailments. More than 600 people a week visit him at his Adelaide home. Although he treats hundreds without payment, Muhammad is wealthy, as the diamonds indicate. He has already erected his own tombstone in Springbank, but from appearances, he's not going to need it for a long time to come. Great age hangs lightly on his shoulders. Although wed in the winter of his life, he is the complete family man, an object lesson to young husbands. Clean living is the elixir of longevity, he says. Well, you're a better man than I am, Muhammad Alam.
"50,000 people pack Adelaide streets to welcome the party reenacting Stet's historic voyage down the Murray. Actor Grant Taylor is Captain Stet, and his men ride their whaleboat in a hay cart through streets lined with people in period costume. Coaches of the time join the procession to the scene of the final ceremony at Victoria Square, where Captain Stet's memorial stands. The Harry James of the period. The Premier of South Australia, Mr. Playford, greets members of an expedition which commemorated a great feat in Australia's history. Mr. Anthony Stet lays a wreath on the statue of his great-grandfather. Australia, in its Jubilee year, remembers one of the men who explored its vast inland.
Here on the Prince's Highway, at an entrance to the Adelaide Hills, is one of South Australia's most colourful links with it, the old toll house. Thousands of road users pass mark with barely a thought or backward glance at the ancient relic, would learn that this mute memorial has history out of all proportion to its size. The quaint hexagonal building was erected in 1841 when the toll was first instituted and a gate placed across the then rough road. Tolls ranged from a halfpenny to 3 shillings, a halfpenny a head for sheep and 3 shillings for bullock wagons. The purpose of the toll was to help defray the expense incurred in making the new road through the hills. Those were its days. Timekeepers, working round the clock, collected taxes from all travellers except the governor's carriage and churchgoers, who were exempt on Sundays only. In 1847, the toll was abolished. For over a century, the toll house slumbered. Its historic gates disappeared. It was forgotten, except by a few. And yet it remained a prominent landmark. One wintry day on the 4th of July, 1951, it had its moments of returning glory. At the site, a rendezvous with the past was kept by a gathering of citizens led by Mr. Geoffrey Clark, MP, and including Tourist Bureau officials, council members, and representatives of the Royal Geographical Society and Pioneers Association. The ceremony of one of the 2 original toll gates. For many years, they were believed to have been lost, but when Mr. Harry Meyer, on whose country property the gates reposed, was made aware of their historic value, he presented them to the government. Time had taken toll of one, but the other was repaired and re-erected near its original site. And that is the story of the toll house, and the story of how one of its historic gates came again to its rightful place. A true relic from our state's past that will now be preserved, whole of the South Australian Government Tourist Bureau for generations to come.
Adelaide Showtime comes round again, a constant merry-go-round for the kids, with Mum and Dad trying to dodge them. Sideshows galore too, and a couple of added attractions, with boxing troops swinging leather, hell for leather. A round or 2 for a pound or 2. And the Mad Men of the Mat, with groans and grunts to give customers a thrill. He must have met an ear basher.
It's just a dog's life for other competitors, although there are some compensations after the judging. Dry massage, lady? And here's an horse act that's a champ in its own way. A regular flag-waving type and part of a performance that would be tops on any bill. Yes, sir, he can afford to put on dog. Mounted police lead the big parade as Adelaide sees the country come to town for its annual week-off showtime. A parade that reminds Mr. Suburbia that the man on the land is still a mighty important guy. Adelaide holds the quest for Miss Beach Girl of 1955, with a bevy of lovelies all trying to catch the judge's eyes, as if any judge could resist them. There are lots of finalists, and all of them with figures to make even an auditor happy. But judges narrow the field down to 13 as the grand final gets underway. And believe it or not, number 13 is the lucky girl. 17 years old, June Bozisto, a dental nurse from Gawler. She wins £250, which is a nice figure for a nice figure.
At the seaside suburb of Henley, South Australia, 9 men and a girl are really up the pole. They're 20 feet above the ground and they're sitting pretty to win a prize of £100. 15-year-old Pamela Searle stays aloft 3 days, then she, like 2 of the men, comes down to earth. Pamela said all she could keep thinking about was a lovely bubble bath. Temperatures have been over the century, but 7 men are still determined to sit it up.
This motorcar bodybuilding plant in Adelaide, seen here as a model, is helping to solve some of Australia's problems in the worldwide shortage of cars. Here, steel sheets are shaped by giant hydraulic presses into body sections. One gentle movement of the press and the floor of a motorcar has come into being. Similar presses press out each individual part of the body. The door panel gets the full treatment. After being pressed out in one press, it goes through a further process in another. The chrome-plated radiator grills are welded, and the stack is a healthy indication of output. The job starts with sub-assembly and the welding of front and back sections with the floor. After welding, the seams are filled with soft solder to give the joins an even finish. Standardized sizes to micrometer measurements have avoided all possibility of error. The soldering is then filed down for overall smoothness, and the basic frame is ready for the fitting of doors. With the complete metal body assembled, it's dipped in an anti-corrosive bath. Before the cars enter the spraying chamber, they are again washed and rubbed down. It's a job for many hands, and most of the workers in this case are new Australians. Several coats of paint are sprayed on according to the color chosen for the car. Back on the assembly line, the car bodies are near the end of the process. Another lot of cutting compound is painted on, a thick mixture which would seem to spoil the paint, but once it's cut back with electric polishers, the full shine of the final coat is evident. The windscreen is fitted in 2 sections, and the safety-type glass enables liberties to be taken which would be quite impossible with standard glass. Try hitting your lounge window with a mallet sometime. A trainload of car bodies is ready for interstate, an ever-growing output in a vital industry for peace or for war.
It would seem indeed as if the gates to paradise were opening as we enter Adelaide and pass up King William Street into the Garden City. Above the growing might of steel and concrete rises a symbol of progress. We look down onto the parapets and faves of the main thoroughfare, King William Street. to descend into the commercial canyon to mingle for a few moments with the citizens. Rundle Street, the principal shopping centre, with its splendid emporiums and enticing stores, which reflect the very bon ton of fashion and prosperity. Adelaide is the oldest municipality and third largest city in the Commonwealth. Designed by Colonel Light along model lines, his conceptions combining aesthetic charm with commercial requirements have been magnificently realized. Looking down beautiful North Terrace, centre of culture and site of the conservatorium, university, the art gallery and other institutions of learning. Here stands the War Memorial, where stone and bronze preserve imperishably memories of supreme sacrifice. King William Road leads on through charming parklands to North Adelaide, the city's principal residential section. Government House is in the immediate foreground. The salient features of this western panorama are Torrens Lake and the Central Railway Station, whence railroads radiate to all parts of the state. This magnificent building provides all the facilities of a first-class restaurant in addition to the other requirements for passenger traffic. It also accommodates the clerical staff. And now from the clouds 2,000 feet above us, we gain a comprehensive view of the railway yard, the station, and North Terrace. From North Adelaide, looking citywards above King William Street, Torrens Lake can be seen extending across the picture to the right. Torrens Lake and its beautiful environment. Adelaide's wide straight thoroughfares, open squares and encircling parks embracing 2,000 acres. The excellence of its site and charm of its surroundings are a perpetual reminder of the wise forethought of its founder, Colonel Light. Let us pause for a moment to bow in homage to Captain Matthew Flinders, one of the most illustrious figures in the history of Australian exploration. As commander of the Investigator, he explored and charted most of the South Australian coast. Among South Australian pioneers, Captain Charles Sturt stands unique. He was the first white man to travel on the Murray River and later explored Central Australia. John McDouall Stewart was one of the most dauntless characters in Australian exploration. He succeeded in crossing Australia from south to north after numerous endeavours and terrible hardships, to perpetuate the dominant part played by George Fife Angus in founding the colony, and John Howard Angus, pioneer pastoralist, who did much to improve the breed of farm stock and advance the progress of agriculture. Hail Ross Smith, who with his brother Keith and Sergeants Shears and Bennett pioneered the aerial route from England to Australia. The War Memorial by night, the Garden of Memory, the peerless tribute of the women of South Australia to those who served in the Great War. St. Peter's Cathedral. The Botanic Gardens. Turn which way we will, there are countless points of attraction in this city of gardens and flowers. When spring draws near, the almond trees don their bridal array, and suburban gardens are joy to behold. What a delightful setting they afford for the attractive homes for which Adelaide is renowned. seen Adelaide without making a tour in the hills. The routes are so many that the difficulty is to decide which to select. We have chosen Morialta, where the road skirts a deep ravine walled by frowning cliffs. Far below, the Morialta Falls tumble into further depths. This is but one of the lovely scenes with which the hills abound. As the sun plays on the shimmering spray, the falling waters are glorified by a rainbow. Millbrook Reservoir, one of the principal sources of the city's water supply. Springtime transforms the Adelaide Hills into a landscape in paradise. Besides their wealth of beauty, the hilly regions are extensively cultivated. Fruits, flowers, and vegetables thrive in luxuriant perfection. Here amidst clambering vine and golden groves are located some of the finest examples of peaceful rural landscape in the world. Nor are the allurements of sport and entertainment missing. Amidst this beautiful countryside on the southeastern slopes of the ranges is situated the Onkaparinga Racecourse. Of the many race meetings held throughout Australia, none can rival Onkaparinga in its atmosphere of hospitality and conviviality. It is preeminently a picnic meeting, where old friendships are renewed and new associations made. Many do not even try their luck with the bookmakers. The events, exciting as they may be, generally take second place to the social side of the meeting. Hospitality and goodwill are always hot favorites at Onkaparinga. Then there is golf. Adelaide possesses many beautiful links, but none is more picturesquely situated than Mount Osmond. Set on a remarkable plateau, embraced on three sides by magnificent mountain scenery, and overlooking the garden city on the plains far below, Mount Osmond is as near to paradise as any good clubman might wish to putt.
Adelaide, our beautiful city, has long received world recognition as an almost perfect example of town planning. Approaching from the north and crossing the bridge, we pause for a moment at Parliament House, a dignified building from the steps of which we look toward the business section of our city, where tall modern buildings symbolize the economic development of our state. Across King William Road stands the entrance to a stately Government House, and adjacent to this, in tree-lined North Terrace, is the cultural center of our city, the museum, the art gallery, one of Australia's best, and the university, cradle of many famous scholars. It is typical of Adelaide's combination of beauty with utility that little more than a stone's throw from the bustle of busy streets flows the peaceful River Torrens. Is our zoo, with its beautiful and well-tended gardens, its rare and colorful birds, many of which have been bred in captivity, such as this Javan parakeet. Visitors to Adelaide find a tranquil charm in its lovely city and are keen for others to see it. But too often, many of us South Australians, with all this beauty at our door and throughout the state, seek more distant scenes before seeing our own state first. We can truly claim that Adelaide is the city beautiful.
The statue of its founder, Colonel Light, looks out on Adelaide, a city which has grown in dignity and lovely natural surroundings. Very few of its streets are so commercialized as this one, for Adelaide likes to have a garden setting for structures of significance like the War Memorial, appropriate symbol for a city of culture and beauty. A few miles from Adelaide are the almond orchards in the suburb of Marion, and almond blossom time never fails to attract city visitors. These trees are 40 years old, but the blossoms of white and pink are only a few days old. Their brief but glorious life depending on the temper of the wind. first indication of spring, nature's preview of glories to come. But whatever blossoms and buds as the earth stirs to life, charms of almond blossom time will stand comparison with them all.
Under this arched gum tree, still preserved as a valued link with history, the state of South Australia was proclaimed on December the 28th, 1836. In a little more than 100 years, South Australia, untouched through centuries of time, has been converted into a prosperous and contented state. As these brief glimpses will show, South Australia has a wide variety of scenic charms and a kindly climate rivaling the best in the world. Typical of the vision and foresight with which the state was planned was the work of its first Surveyor General, Colonel William Light. A famous soldier, he found his greatest battle in the fight for the acceptance of his plans for the ideal capital city. Light selected this perfect location, and today his Adelaide, capital of South Australia, extends in peaceful beauty between the mountains and the sea. Wide and handsome thoroughfares are a feature of Light's model plan of Adelaide. The Boer War Memorial is situated in King William Street, the main artery of the city. King William Street is intersected by Victoria Square, where amongst many monuments to early explorers stands the statue to John MacDougall Stewart, first to cross the continent from Adelaide to the Indian Ocean. The busy shopping centre of the city is Rundle Street. This is only 1 block distant from the park-like surroundings of Government House. The inspiring State War Memorial is on North Terrace. North Terrace is Adelaide's cultural centre, for here are the University, Conservatorium of Music, art galleries, libraries and museums. To this seat of learning come students from such great public schools as St. Peter's and Prince Alfred colleges. West, along North Terrace, is the Central Railway Station, from which railroads radiate to all parts of the continent. Its stately architecture is seen at its best from the sylvan surroundings of Torrens Lake. Only a few yards from the centre of the city, Torrens Lake abounds in many such tranquil scenes as these. It is surrounded by beautiful gardens in which stand many fine memorials, including that to the late Sir Ross Smith, who pioneered the air route from England to Australia. In the shadow of the spires of St. Peter's Cathedral is the Garden of Memory, tribute of the women of South Australia to those who fell in the Great War. Adelaide has indeed earned its title of the Garden City, and as would be expected, these botanical gardens offer many lovely scenes, particularly when the roses are in bloom. However, in Adelaide, flowers are not confined to the city's gardens. Almost without exception, every suburban home has its gardens and flowers, and here is a typical scene in the suburbs of Adelaide. But for gardens that equal the best in the world, we will travel to Mount Lofty, 2,000 feet above sea level, yet within 12 miles of Adelaide. As our streamlined locomotive draws us up the steep grades, we pass picturesque orchards. South Australia's genial climate is most favourable to fruit growing. No wonder it is possible to cultivate such lovely gardens as these. Surrounding stately homes at Mount Lofty, they present an amazing blending of natural and cultivated beauty. These lovely hills may also be reached by car in a few minutes' drive from the city. Here, in bracing mountain air, we may enjoy more of the great scenic variety which the Mount Lofty ranges have to offer. Peaceful hills and cultivated valleys are seen in contrast to rugged, age-old gorges with sparkling cascades, such as those at Waterfall Gully. The awe-inspiring Morialto Gorge has its waterfalls too, and these pleasant scenes are strangely within a tram ride of Adelaide itself. Fringed by these mountains on its eastern side, Adelaide is favoured on its western border by golden beaches miles in extent, dotted with seaside resorts. Foremost of these is Glenelg, 6 miles from Adelaide, where the clear waters of St. Vincent's Gulf provide all kinds of aquatic sport.
Adelaide, the Garden City. That is the name which has been coined to describe the graceful capital of South Australia. A richly endowed city rising from plains midway between the highlands of the Mount Lofty ranges and the silvery beaches of Gulf waters. Unlike most other Australian cities, Adelaide did not grow by chance. For its wide streets, unique green belt, and general air of spaciousness, all credit must go to one man, Colonel William Light. By first carefully selecting the site of the capital in 1836, then planning it, Colonel Light boldly experimented by looking far ahead into the future. He survived his choice by only a few years, for he died in 1839, his sad end hastened by failing health and bitter recriminations. Today, this fine statue, honoring the first Surveyor General, points to the distant trim city. From this beautiful garden on Montefiore Hills, which takes the name of Light's vision, thousands of visitors from the world over have paused and admired the generous vistas of the Garden City skyline and the distant sweep of the Mount Lofty ranges. A quarter street with its towers and tall buildings may be Adelaide's jugular vein, but its pulse is best felt along Rundle Street. Past the beehives, Adelaide's famous rendezvous corner is the main shopping centre. Its emporiums, its fashion shops, its chain stores, its cafes, and many of its picture theatres. At night, it dons a carnival mask. Its brilliant neon lights illuminating the street with an extravagance of colour, while crowds throng its footpaths in search of pleasure. For a sheer display of concentrated colour, Rundle Street at night is without peer in Australia. It would be most difficult to find a more picturesque thoroughfare than North Terrace. This shaded boulevard is widely acclaimed one of the loveliest in the world. There is nothing elusive about the charm of North Terrace, much of which lies in the contrast it offers. At first, the geometric lines of its tall professional buildings dominate the scene from King William Street. But on the northern side, where buildings of culture raise impressive towers and facades, the terrace is virtually encased in a garden. Palms, lawns, and flowering shrubs make effective vignettes around its conveniently grouped public buildings. And so into the Mount Lofty ranges, which abound with varied beauty spots, some being wisely preserved for the people as national pleasure resorts. Two such popular resorts are Waterfall Gully and Morialto Falls. This is Waterfall Gully, a truly beautiful spot deep in the hills, yet only 7 miles east of the Adelaide GPO. Fed by a perpetual spring, this silvery stream plunges 60 feet into a catchment basin in a wildly picturesque gully and endless sources of attraction for its many visitors. Morialto is another rugged and extremely beautiful hills reserve, also within 7 miles of the city, and with many, the most popular resort in the ranges. Well-kept paths leading up to its falls coil through a deep gorge, while dizzy heights loom abruptly above in wild grandeur. So this is Adelaide today, a city of many outstanding achievements, proud of its past, confident of its future. And could Colonel Light return, well might he feel satisfied that history has so triumphantly vindicated his enduring worth. The reason that led me to fix Adelaide where it is, I do not expect to be generally understood or calmly judged of at present. My enemies, however, by disputing their validity in every particular, have done me the good service of fixing the whole of the responsibility upon me. I am perfectly willing to bear it, and I leave it to posterity and not to them to decide whether I am entitled to praise or blame.